Welcome to Ramblings and Randomness number 11.
Or 12.
Or 12 with Rolf and Romelio. He's Rolf.
He's Romelio.
And in case you didn't notice, we missed an episode last week.
Yeah, I might put it up later.
He ain't,
the
because
pieces I can get.
We had some technical difficulties. Basically, we left the fan on. My fault because it sits behind me. So the audio was terrible. Rolf edited the best he could, still sounding like crap. So I was like, you know what? Let's not even post it. He's like, you're right.
It's kind of why the rapid was 5 minutes.
Right.
That, and it got too political.
It did. So we just like, we're not gonna post it. I mean, look, let's
I might
be real.
post it. I got drawings for it, so I'll probably post it.
Just post them with this one.
Yeah.
I mean, you really can't because they're doing a DC appreciation episode.
Yeah,
and we're Marvel characters.
That one or before, I don't know.
No, just post it. Like, oh, if you do drawings for DC appreciation episode, I know who I want to be.
Batman?
No, wow. I want to be like Black Lightning. Like, it's the only person I can be, or Martian Manhunter.
Hey, we had this whole long discussion.
I know, I was waiting for you to pick it up.
Whatever you want.
No, I really don't.
Except for Batman Needs Old Money. Remember we talked about that?
Yes, we did.
Anyone but Batman. You can be one of the, what was it?
Flash.
What was it? The
Oh, make me Flash! Yes. And I can't really run fast, just eat real fast.
This week is DC Appreciation Week.
We spend a lot of time harping on DC, okay? Their movie universe
Deservedly so.
was trash. Their comics are just like, what? And we throw shout outs out every now and again. You know, I'm a big fan of the Arrowverse and their animated stuff, but we were talking about episode ideas. I'm like, man, you know, we need those DC some love because anybody watching us would think that we don't care for DC Comics. And that's not true.
And we don't care for DC Comics.
That's not true. We understand and respect and are glad for the impact that they've had on the comic community. And realize that without them, we wouldn't be where we are. So, we decided to show what we love about DC.
DC is my first introduction to comics and superheroes. I mean, the original was the Tim Burton Batman movie for me. It came out when I was 4 or 5, somewhere around there. And so I grew up with it when I remember my birthday party at Chuck E. Cheese, getting the Batcave.
Why didn't I get invited?
I didn't know you.
Excuses.
And I can't remember which relative it was, but my parents had gotten me the Batcave, and someone else had gotten me the Batcave. So somebody had to take it back. Oh, they took it back, and I'm like, but I want to. But that was my initial, and it's really weird because you go back and watch the original Batman and it's not for 5-year-olds.
Well, we really did look at it like that. I mean, at the time, we really was like, oh my God, it's Batman! You know? And he's not going to the Batmobile, Robin. It was like really some serious stuff. We didn't understand the implications at the time. I wasn't even 6 yet. I was 5. So you're 4.
4 or 5, I don't know what, depending on the month it came out.
So we're going to talk about what we like most about DC for the third time. So you want to start? Or you want me to start?
I thought we already started. That's why we were talking about the Michael Keaton Batman movie.
Oh, is that one thing you appreciate about it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I rewatched it not that long ago, and it's like the version of Batman I like is not that one. But I really do enjoy that that's, again, take it as its own thing. I like that adaptation. And it's a weird, he's not buff, but the Michael Keaton part of Bruce Wayne, he's crazy enough to be Batman.
You right.
The scene when the Joker shows up in his apartment and he gets the, what's it called? Fireplace poker. And he's just like, you want to get nuts? Let's get nuts. Come on. And he's basically doing his Beetlejuice almost.
Mm-hmm.
Like that guy, I could totally see
Being Batman.
being Batman.
Right, you're right. And I think what I like most about Bruce Wayne, because again, I'll say it, I ain't afraid. Keaton Batman's trash. Like him as Batman, he's trash. He was. I don't care.
Except for the delivery of Batman.
Yeah, that was awesome. But him as Batman,
That wasn't Keaton Batman. That was Val Kilmer Batman.
I'm so sorry. I'm
they're the same level.
You're right.
They're the same level.
No, they're not. No, they're not.
No, y'all thinking of Clooney Batman. Kilmer Batman
Right.
wasn't a bad Batman.
He's not, but he's not the same level as Keaton.
Right. Because
Actually, he was probably lower.
he's a better Batman, worse Bruce Wayne. Though he should have been opposite.
You can't go wrong with bat nipples, though.
But he wasn't as good, especially in that universe's version of Bruce Wayne. But he was a better version of the traditional Bruce Wayne than Michael Keaton.
Yes.
Because he was the more pretty boy. And yeah, I could totally see him more as the Bruce Wayne in the comics than Keaton.
Right. So for me, the first thing that I appreciate about DC is, and I think we've talked about this in the past, but the difference between Marvel and DC for me is DC...
Bringing Marvel back up.
5 minutes.
DC is
That's
more
spicy.
for that innocence that you have as a child. You know, they try to get serious with their comic books nowadays, but...
That's what it's so really weird. Sorry to cut you off, but I've been reading so many articles recently where they're just like, DC is the serious one, and I'm just like, why? That's not when we grew up until at least the mid 2000s or until Identity Crisis. It was not the serious one overall. Batman was serious. We've talked that before. Batman is a serious one, but the rest of it was way more lighthearted. And it's only since that they basically figured we can start being darker, and that'll sell more, because that's what a lot of their big popular stuff from the 80s are the more darker takes.
Mm-hmm.
And
which I think they missed the point on that was people are drawn to the dark stories because they're not used to it from DC. But then when you oversaturate your books with it and everything else coming out, there's one crisis after another. Like, when do these people get a break? Like, one thing I do like is their recent storyline, whatever it was called.
that's a good storyline.
Look, see, yeah, that's some shade on DC. Let me look it up.
They're doing Doomsday Clock that keeps getting pushed back every issue by like 2 months. It might eventually end at the end of this year.
The recent storyline they did, Heroes in Crisis, was exactly what they needed to do. The way they went about it was completely ridiculous. They should have kept it on point and discussed all these heroes seeking out psychiatric care because they've been through so much that it takes its toll on them too. You know, we have soldiers getting PTSD from Iraq and Afghanistan and brief tours, but we're supposed to believe that Batman's been running around for 40 years, beating up on bad people, having people die in his care, and it's good.
He's Batman.
He owns that shit.
Nobody owns that. It breaks you, and eventually he'll cross a line. And that's my point. So instead of having Wally West kill everyone because he had a speed... Good things about these.
This sounds like throwing shade to me.
That's what I'm saying. Good things. They should have focused on that. But it was nice to see that they recognize that something even Marvel doesn't do, that their heroes are still people and go through stuff and need help to reconcile these things. So that was really cool to me.
I feel like the best DC works are the ones when people really understand the character, and you put the character in its world, and like, so Batman should be dark. Like, he's a very traumatized individual. Superman is the beacon of hope, and my favorite series, one of my favorite all-time arcs in comics is All-Star Superman. All-Star Superman was a more like an Elseworlds alternate reality. This story isn't take place in continuity. Definitive take on the character of Superman. And ever since I've read that, whenever I discuss whenever I discuss Superman with people and how the character should be done, that's the book I refer to. And there's a single page in that book series that is my go-to for Superman. And I'll put a little image of it here. The writer was Grant Morrison. The artwork was by Frank Quietly. But in the issue, Superman is just zipping all over the place, saving different world-ending things or just little crimes going on. And you see, if you go back and especially once you see the page, if you start reading it, you'll catch little clues building up to it because he hears the therapist actually being late because of a crash. But the scene, it opens to this girl standing on the top of a building, a little goth girl. She's got her phone on her. She's all in tears because the therapist can't be there, and she's prepping to jump. And Superman pops up there, and he's just like, he comforts her. He's like, your therapist really was late or whatever, but she turns, he gives her an embrace and a hug, and that's it. And that is the definitive take on Superman. He's this all-powerful being. He's going around doing all sorts of stuff, but he still pays attention and he cares for a single individual who needs help. And that...
In a cacophony of chaos, I hear you.
Yeah. Cacophony. And I probably made that up. I'm probably wrong at how it's pronounced on that because I'm wrong at everything's pronunciation.
I think it's a singular. But anyway, so for me, if my go-to DC thing is the Arrowverse. I watch everything. I'm actually all caught up now. Just finished Supergirl season 3. And it's like I love it. A lot of people say that it's run its course, that it's this and this. And what I like most about the Arrowverse is it doesn't take itself too seriously. Even Arrow, which is supposed to be Batman, pretty much, doesn't take itself too seriously. There's always a joke. Excuse me again. Oh my God. Whew. There's always something to break the tension, and that's what I love about it. It's like, haha, that's funny, or and that's what I really appreciate about DC is it's refreshing not to be so serious. Young Justice, can we talk about Young Justice for a minute? Young Justice is the best DC animated show of all time. If you have not watched it, go watch Young Justice. Season 1, phenomenal. I mean, it's like, oh my gosh, it's great. Then season 2 comes and you're like, what? And it's awesome. And then season 3's part 2 just started. I haven't caught up yet. I think I'm 2 episodes behind, but yeah, can't wait for it. Young Justice is phenomenal. I've watched it 3 times all the way through.
I'm trying to remember which one? That one. Okay. One of my favorite. For me, now I've gotten older. Like, there's the DC stuff I like for nostalgia value, which is again like the old Batman movies, the old Batman cartoon. Mark Hamill as the Joker is amazing. But this isn't even newer now. This was 14 years old, but when they started doing their direct-to-animated series, I'm a big fan of I like takes on their stuff like All-Star Superman, where it's not bogged down with all the continuity, and they can be slightly different. So I really liked the Justice League, the New Frontier animated movie they made.
I hated that one. The only thing I really liked about it was when Batman changed his mask. That's what I love that. Like, you know, the little girl said I was scary. And so he changed his mask so he looked happy. I love that because that's Batman stuff to do. Like, he went, yeah, you're right. Let me go ahead and make my eyes do this. But yeah, that was awesome.
But I really enjoyed, like, it was, again, one of those takes of the characters being bright, and it wasn't a dark, even though there's dark parts of it, it's not a dark story. I mean, they're going to defend the world from the stuff, but
I think, and especially with Superman as their poster child, DC's been more about hope. Marvel is more about reality. And I think when DC started trying to adapt that Marvel take, they forgot that Marvel's heroes, all of them, at one point or the other, are more military focused. You know, the X-Men you can look as a strike force. The Avengers as SEAL Team 6. Like, they all have their specialty and they all have a singular focus of when stuff goes down, they move. What?
you're talking Marvel again.
I know. But I'm making a point. DC, the Justice League. The Justice League came together, why? Because there was a threat that none of them could handle alone. And together they were more of a match. They had more hope than they did fear. Okay, so they came together because they hoped for the best. Well, if you look and I'm using Marvel as counterbalance here. Marvel, they come together because their skills work best together. While 90% of Marvel hate each other or are fighting all the time. How many times have we seen Justice League versus Justice Society?
The difference between DC and Marvel in that aspect was DC has been around a lot longer, and they built the archetypes for most of all the superhero characters, the dark brooding one, the happy hopeful one. They are very much, and I know that's one of the aspects they've been playing on them, DC is modern mythology. More so, they've played it some with Marvel, but Marvel is always supposed to be more human. Like, we relate with Peter because of the problems he's going through more often, whereas in DC, it was always more the big hero with all the money is doing this, the hero's a god. There wasn't as much tension for everyday life. They were the archetype, and that works originally, and it works in points, and that's why I like the arcs where it's not bogged down with continuity, because then you can, when you're telling it for one tale, having it that way is amazing. Like, you're having Superman's basically this god, here's the stuff he does to save it, it's over. The problem is when you try to have a series continue for 50 years and your character is basically a god or archetype, it makes it much harder to keep writing them to make it unique and work because they are supposed to be a mythical figure.
And I think that's Superman versus the Elite is, and DC wrote it, and I think they missed their own point. In Superman versus the Elite, this new group of heroes show up called the Elite, and they go where Superman won't. They kill, they take the hard edge, and they're ruthless. They do what needs to be done. And
When did this come out?
Superman vs. Elite came out in the 90s.
Because this sounds just like Kingdom Come,
The
which was DC's in the 90s.
Superman vs. the Elite was it was a animated movie in 2011, but it was based on a series from the 90s, I believe.
But Kingdom Come is basically, it's a whole discussion of how they're viewed as more gods, but then like man's going against them. But that was very much a commentary on the 90s, because it was the old heroes have been getting older and they're feeling out of date, and the new young heroes are much more violent, much more killing, and there's an incident that killed a lot of people and sent Superman into retirement for years and all that. But that's one of my favorite comics for arcs. It's taken the story and it's an Elseworlds tell as a whole, and I truly think you have a lot of stories to tell with all of those characters, but more so than Marvel, DC I think is hurt by continuity, whereas Marvel can handle it. I feel that like easier. The best DC tales for me, and some of the best ones that people know and are big, are all miniseries that aren't actually like mainstream. Like Dark Knight Rises is an alternate future. Batman, what was it? Year One. That's an alternate take on how he got started. And the DC stories, you get the miniseries telling a certain tale around the characters are great. When you keep going with them, that's when they have issue, I feel.
Well, I'm sorry, it wasn't Superman. It wasn't called Superman versus League. It was a story called "What's So Funny About Truth, Justice, and the American Way," which we all know is Superman's tagline.
That was totally influenced by Kingdom Come. Came out like 8 years before it.
Well,
yeah.
The story goes is Superman, because he's in his prime, like he's Superman, but people feel that he doesn't people are tired of seeing him face Lex Luthor 8 times. Meanwhile, 40 people just died because Lex Luthor killed him, and nothing ever happens, and they're kind of disenfranchised with him because they feel like what he stands for isn't what the world is. And so basically, the animated movie does a really good job of this, where it shows people, all about the elite. People start dressing like them, throwing out Superman stuff, and the elite call them out. I'm like, if you want to stop us, come stop us. And you not know where my thumbs up is? But so Superman, they meet on the moon, and they decimate Superman, and so he flips it on them, like he survives their attack, and he's like, I finally get it, and he proceeds to wreck them all. And it comes finally down to the last guy, and he lobotomizes him. Well, he doesn't lobotomize him, really. He lobotomizes the part of his brain that gives him his powers. And so everybody's like freaked out. First off, they're freaked out because they killed Superman. Then when they saw Superman become like the elite, they're freaked out because they realize it's the death of their morals. And
they have no way to stop him.
Right. And so once they saw, Superman was like, I'm not like you. I'll never betray my morals. It'll always be truth, justice, the American way. And everybody realized, Superman's more about hope. So it all comes down to DC's hope. And as we become older and more cynical, we give up on hope. And that's why Marvel's so appealing to us. That's why Endgame is all of our favorite movies. Yes, I'm talking about Marvel again. Because as an adult, you totally should put up a counter. How many times Mel goes off topic back to Marvel? But I'll give you a perfect example. My son, my 7-year-old son, would rather sit around and watch Power Rangers than Infinity War Endgame. He still hasn't seen Endgame, has no desire. But we have watched Power Rangers Jungle Fury at least 6 times in the last 6 weeks. Because it's all about hope. At every episode, the Power Rangers are about to lose, but they find a way to win. Because he's 7 and he still believes in the heart of the cards. And as adults, we grow older, more cynical, and we lose track of that. And that's why Marvel appeals to us so much. DC's more about hope, and that's why when we see DC stories like, I can watch Arrow and understand the nuances of what this means for Oliver and the repercussions of this decision. Well, my son's like, he's shooting arrows with a boxing glove.
Marvel is about hope, but it's a much harder to get to, and it's not as often, but it feels more earned in the last few. And
right,
like when got me talking to Captain America coming out, that spot was like, you're as beat down as you can, and then there's that call, and then people start, and you're just like, that wave of feeling when I pretty much think I had a stroke when that started to happen, but that feeling, I was so excited when all that was
wasn't a
going
stroke,
on.
bro. That was an orgasm.
But that feeling is especially what the biggest
I can
superhero
count,
should
Buddha.
be.
Fuck. Sorry, go ahead and say it again.
That's what the old, as cheesy as it is now, that's what the old Superman movie did. The old Superman was about hope. And it doesn't,
There's your pulpit. Go on, preach on them, Rolf.
I think we're almost out of time, right?
Okay. Preach till time's up.
What?
We got a minute and a half. Preach your song.
Eh?
I'm coming up. I got your gospel. Oh, Lord. Are you not going to preach?
It's gonna wait now. It's like a minute and 10 seconds.
Superman is about hope.
We said that like 6 times.
Yeah.
I should have preached. And you get preaching is awesome. I'm going to get some organ music and just be like this on my keyboard and playing organ music during the video.
I don't know.
Can I be honest?
What?
I really don't have much more to say about DC. I'm not hating. I appreciate DC. I like DC. But I have not nearly the amount of love as I do with Marvel.
Yeah.
I love the Arrowverse. Already talked about it. Unless we're going to start talking about individual characters. But again, they're all pretty much the same. Whereas I can see the difference in DC in Marvel's characters. Right? Like I can relate being a dad like Hawkeye. Okay? I can relate to being noble like Cap. I can relate to being an asshole like Tony Stark. But I can relate to being douchebag. I can relate to being oppressed like Bruce Banner and mutants. Yeah, I don't really have much more to add on the whole DC thing. I do appreciate DC. Like when I hear about a DC movie or show or something happening, I don't get excited as I used to, but I will check it out. I'll give it a shot. I can't wait to see Ruby Rose as Batman or Batwoman.
She is gorgeous.
She is. She's gonna be Prince Eric in Little Mermaid. No. So I appreciate DC for its impact and the potential it has, but I think they've grown really out of touch, especially under Warner Brothers.
They've always been under Warner Brothers.
No, since 90. Oh yeah, so yeah, you're right. You're right. Actually,
I don't know when they were first bought out, but at least for our entire lives, they've always been under Warner
For the
Brothers.
majority of our lives, not entire lives.
Yeah.
Some of us.
Oh my gosh, it is our. Oh wow, 76.
That's, yeah.
Oh wow, I thought it was like around when we were kids.
No.
Oh, so never mind.
It's there.
Never mind, DC. Y'all just on some bullshit. All right, but okay. So we're going to discuss a few other things. First thing we're discussing is we have another guest here. If y'all didn't tell from the rapid, Jimmy, say hi again.
Hi!
So that's our friend Jimmy. I've known Jimmy for 14, almost 15 years. 15. Yeah, 15, 16 years now. But anyway, so Jimmy is one of our dedicated fans. He's come up with a few good ideas, and we've used them. Our rapid ramble from earlier this week, that was Jimmy's idea. Round of applause for Jimmy, everybody. That's Batmobile.
What's
That's
your
about it.
favorite Batmobile?
Yeah, what's your favorite Batmobile,
My
Jimmy?
favorite Batmobile is a tumbler.
It's trash.
I'm gonna cut you.
No, honestly, when I first saw the Tumbler, I loved it. What really makes me most upset about the Tumbler is they never called it the Batmobile.
Exactly. They never refer to it as a Batmobile.
When I first saw the Tumbler, I hated it. And then I saw how he got it and it in action, and I liked it.
Right.
Well, out of all the Batmobiles, it's the only realistic Batmobile out there. It's the
Yeah.
only one that can be physically made to.
Realistic. You know how much
Except
gas
for-
that goes through?
Right, except for
Fuck gas, dude, biodiesel.
except for the Justice League Batmobile, which was built and run and operated. So, and every other Batmobile.
Hey.
Anywho, we got ramblings. So me and Rolf were talking. We were thinking about episode ideas, and Jimmy, since I've known him, has always like been one of those guys. Like he has 1,000,010 questions and ask you about them. And so like I remember like when we sit at the gas station, somebody would be sky high, and was just like asking me like random questions. And so I was thinking about that one day. I'm like, we should do that. We should have Jimmy like be like our guest spot and have like a question he's always wondered about: comics, TV, fantasy, anything that he wants, and ask us, and we do our research, figure it out, and then answer the question for Jimmy and elaborate on it, and so forth and so forth. And Jimmy's a bit what's the right word? Lunatic. Touched by God. Missing a few marbles out of his jack set. You take a pick. Which one? He's a smart guy. He's just not right.
I'm the dumbest smart guy you know.
You know, if you're from the South like we are, there's a saying, bless his heart. Jimmy's heart has been blessed so many times. Okay? All right, so that is our rapid ramblings for the week. We went a bit off topic. This will probably all end up in our blooper episode. It's been awesome, but we will be featuring Jimmy on an episode, maybe Buddha too.
Buddha's already been in an episode.
Yeah, why not?
I mean, yeah.
We can have a table talk. He's Roth? Oh, no, yeah, do your little ending you like to do.
Oh. Join us next week for a little more R&R with...
R&R. I was teasing you. Go ahead. Sorry.
I'm aware.
I know.
He's Romelio.
He's Roth. You didn't finish your thing, though.
I did.
I like it. No, you didn't, because you stopped and looked at me.
Yeah, because I was letting you finish it.
Oh, let's do it again.
Join us next week for a little more R&R
With
with...
R&R. He's Roth.
He's Romelio.
Bye!
Kick him out loud. We'll talk about DC later.
We're gonna talk DC so much.
We need
We're just gonna
we
skip
need
that
a
episode.
bridge to talking about DC, so we're going to talk about DC and Marvel.
At the same time.
Look, let me go ahead and say this. We're going to end up talking about Marvel.
The only way to get through a DC episode is to add Marvel into it.
I'm not going to hate on DC. Look, without DC, we wouldn't have comic books as they are today. You know, without Superman, we wouldn't have
Without
Marvel.
imagination, we wouldn't have comic books.
You wanted him
He's
here.
got a point.
I mean, yes, he does, but he doesn't. Like,
So,
Exactly what this means.
DC Comics.
You aren't even gonna do
Yeah,
your
we need our
Detective
intro.
Comics.
I'm gonna introduce
You're not even
myself.
gonna do your intro. Just
And jump into it. I can't do this episode.
What episode are we on now? Because we
12.
didn't,
We didn't do last week, so we're on 11.
or was last week's 12?
Last week was 11.
Was it?
I should write this stuff down.
So,
But so we decided to say, Galactus didn't face anybody in our versus.
they at least did in the trading cards, they had him against the Spectre.
Oh.
Because they had him reaching, there was this image of the Earth with the Spectre over it, and Galactus's hand was just reaching around him. It was not to scale like it should be at all. But it was kind of, I remember that.
Let's see. Anyway, we went to talk about Marvel. That was my fault.
Yeah, that was your fault.
Let's just edit that a little bit. Is it recording?
No.
yeah, it's been.
Oh,
Oh, cool. Well, this can all be edited.
Yeah,
So.
figure you just cut it out. Get back.
I can edit it out. Is that a thing I can do?
You can.
Oh,
Your skill set.
editing out video is a useful skill when doing a YouTube page.
Indeed.
I'm getting better. Maybe eventually I'll do more than jump cuts.